what do you see as the future with church social media?
I remember when TikTok came out and I'm like sounding the alarm bells in like 2018. They're like, churches, get on TikTok. This is going to change how social media works. So that one was right. I don't feel that same way about BeReal.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Church Candy podcast. Here in a couple minutes, we're going to be sitting down with Brady Shearer, the founder of Pro Church Tools. Odds are you've probably heard of Brady Shearer if you've been doing ministry and you have a social media account. He has been making content for churches for years and years now, and he has some incredible insight to share with you guys. But before you jump into that episode, I want to invite you to get your free copy of my book, Plan Your Visit Playbook. This is a walkthrough, step-by-step guide on how to get new families to your church by using the Plan Your Visit strategy. You can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com to get your free copy. The book is free. You just need to pay the $8.50 for shipping, and then we'll send that to you, and we cannot wait for you to check out this resource and hear the incredible testimonies of how it benefits and serves your ministry. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Welcome to the Church Candy podcast, the podcast of sweet ministry success. I'm your host, Brady Sticker, and let's jump in. Guys, today we are joined by probably the second best Brady in digital church ministry. We've got Brady Shearer on the podcast. Brady, let me ask you first off, how many other Bradys do you know?
None. When I introduce myself, like if I do the Starbucks thing, I'll say,
yeah.
Well, I used to say Brady like the bunch, and then I got too many people younger than me with a curious eye. So now I say Brady like the quarterback, which works most of the time.
Yeah. What's funny is I always give them Brady, like Tom, or the bunch, depending on what generation you're in, is literally what I go to with that.
Yeah, great. So we're on the same page.
Yeah. Man, it's so awesome to have you on here today. I'm sure most of our audience is familiar with you and Pro Church Tools, but go ahead for those that aren't as familiar, and then even some of us, like me, I've been following you since like 2016. I'd love to learn kind of what brought you guys to where you are now, how you're serving churches, and kind of walk us through what led us here to today.
Yeah, sure. So I run and founded a company called Pro Church Tools. We are also the people behind the church tech platform Nucleus, which is our software platform. That would be the product that drives the revenue in our company. There's a website builder component, online giving, people management, email sending tool, prayer app, registration form builder. It grows by the day, it seems. But I went to Bible college to be a student pastor, so I have my degree in youth ministry and theology. Halfway through my time at Bible college, I did an internship, kind of par for the course for getting your degree, and I get put in a church plant. And they're basically like, hey, you're young, so here's a DSLR camera, here's a MacBook. We want you to do like the video stuff and the website design and like the graphic design, like communications, and like, figure out social media for us. And so basically I kind of like just dove into that without too much prior experience. I had done a bit of video editing in high school, a cracked version of Sony Vegas, like so many of us it seems. Yeah. But I like fell in love with, this intersection of working with churches, the online world that, this is 2010, so like it's just getting started, Facebook public registration, just a couple of years, and creativity, kind of like those three things all together. And then I go back into my classrooms and I look around at my peers and I'm like, man, if I was just put in charge of this at my church, and they're going to be youth pastors and worship pastors, like they're going to get put in charge of it as well. And so as I'm learning these skills, and I start teaching them. So I start a YouTube channel, and I start a podcast, and we start ProChurchTools.com. We're blogging a ton, early 2010s. And, here we are 10 years later. We have a team of about 20, and we have this software platform, 3,000 plus paid churches that use it. And but the thing that's never changed is we're still doing our YouTube channel. YouTube channel is 10 years old as of this July. So, 10 years old on YouTube and 600 plus episodes on the podcast. and on every social platform. Still, that same thing that we did at the beginning, what we say, helping churches navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years and taking advantage of this immense opportunity. And we, it looks like we're about similar age. Like, you don't get to choose when you were born. We were born in like a really interesting time where, like, I remember rotary phones as a kid, and I remember Facebook starting, and now I remember, TikTok changing the landscape of social forever. Social's like an adolescent, it's like 15 years old. It's still the early days.
Yeah, and now I feel like it's innovating quicker than we can even keep up. BeReal, I just learned about it like last week, and I thought I was cool for being on TikTok and being active on TikTok, and I didn't realize that I'm behind because I don't have a BeReal and I'm not into that.
Well, the nice thing about BeReal is, unlike TikTok, the learning curve is incredibly, what's the opposite of steep? Because TikTok, you download it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a different world. But BeReal, it's like, hey, you got 2 minutes to take a photo, and the whole point is BeReal is Gen Z's answer to the over-curated, super aesthetic of Instagram. And surely we'll find a way to ruin BeReal as well if it sticks around. But surely. The nice thing is, it's like, you get 2 minutes to take a photo, everyone gets notified at the same time, and you're done. It's really easy.
Yeah. How would you recommend churches utilizing BeReal in their ministry?
So I would say, if you have people in your care that are already using it, so this is most likely going to be young adults, but even more likely students in a youth group. Yeah. It's a really great way to connect with your students where they are every day, and it's going to be like low risk, high reward. Because like I said, like, it will require basically no time from you, and it will take 10 minutes to like understand what you need to do on the app. And so really, like, there's no reason not to jump in and get started. You can connect with with your students where they are like enjoying connecting with people. And you don't have to like learn a whole new app. Like, oh, vertical video, like editing within the TikTok editor on my phone. Like, again, steep learning curve there. Not so with BeReal.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's so true. I feel like somehow, some way, we're going to get that notification, and we're going to think, okay, we got to go find our church bulletin and take a picture of that. So
oh my gosh.
I know somewhere out there that's probably already happening.
That's funny.
Man, I want to ask you this. A lot of the people that listen to this podcast, they're probably in similar shoes to where me and you were whenever we first started serving other churches. They're creative people. They maybe are into videography or doing social media. What advice would you give to someone that is serving in their church and wants to go and help other ministries do that?
I can only speak for what I did. I think what I did is still applicable today, and that was basically teaching what I knew and building an audience that trusted me, where I was able to earn their trust. And so back in the days of blogging, how that would work was I would write an article that would be strategically titled and around a topic that I knew churches cared about. So I'd write one about video announcements, or I'd write one about church fonts. Those ones did really well. So like a church, back in the day is trying to figure out, like, I gotta make a graphic. Like, what font should I use? So they find my article. It's like 72 of the best church fonts of 2014. And then as they scroll through, there's like a little promotion in the middle of the blog post. It's like, hey, if you want to download this in PDF form, like, we'll send it to you. So just put your email in. And they do. And now they're on my email list. And then I email them next week with another article. And this one's like, hey, how to create your Facebook page for your church. And then a week after that, it's, something different. And then over the weeks and months, they're like, oh, like, when Brady sends me an email, sometimes I read it and this stuff is good. I'm going to stay on this email list, and maybe I'll connect with him on YouTube, or I'll start subscribing to the podcast or connect on social. And then after a couple of years, we like introduced a product, and we had an audience of like, maybe a few thousand at that point, and a small number. We're like, oh, this product meets the needs of our church, and I already know that like I trust Brady because I've been reading his stuff for a while. And so, I'm give him a shot. And that has always been what has been the unique advantage of our company. So when we launched Nucleus 5 years ago, Software, for those that don't know, it is incredibly expensive and incredibly time intensive. Like, we've been at it for 5 years, again, like a team of engineers. And it just feels like we're starting to hit our stride now. And getting here would have been really impossible without our audience, because when we launched, within the first week, more than 1,000 churches signed up to pay for the platform. And that was because, again, we had been building trust and we had been listening to them and getting their feedback. And we're like, okay, here's what we think is a need and what we can do well. And we also know that churches are struggling in this area. And so you find that, again, that perfect intersection. You create something. A lot of people have great ideas. And if you launch and you don't have that audience, like, it might fall on deaf ears because there's just no one there. And so that was always what worked for us. I still think, it's the way to go today. Maybe you're building that audience on TikTok, or maybe you're building it on YouTube. We started with search engine optimization and a blog and email. Maybe you do it slightly different on different platforms, but the core principles are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I think the key takeaway here is Brady was giving value to these churches. It seems like for years before you ever had any ask. Before you ever asked them to buy anything, you were just give value. That's something that Gary Vee talks about a lot, right? About how give. And what that did is that grew an audience of people that knew, like, and trust you. And so whenever you had products, what was the first product that you guys had? Was it the done for you announcements videos?
So we started that like pretty shortly after Pro Church Tools launched.
Okay.
But because that was such a unique, like, done for you, like, turnkey service, we didn't really promote it through the list. Mm-hmm. So that was like, we just bought the domain and we ranked high for the term video announcements. And then when people would search that, they'd find our landing page and then they'd, like, try us out. But there wasn't too much crossover from the audience we were building.
Interesting.
Because the audience we were building was like, hey, do it yourself. And Pro Video Announcements was people finding us and being like, please do this for me. So the first product we launched, like, through to our audience was called the Church Graphics Handbook. And I think that was like 2015. Yeah, so it had been 3 years, 4 or 5. Yeah, 3 years since the YouTube channel had started. And that was the first big thing that we launched. And I remember that launch pretty vividly because, like, people for the first time were like, yes, we will buy something that you made. And we had a big launch celebration and good times. So.
Man, that's awesome, dude. Congratulations on all the success that you guys have had over the years. Man, I think that's so cool that you were able to build this audience and develop that trust with them. And I think that's something that a lot of churches can also take away whenever it comes to putting out content on social media. Right? Like, I'm a big proponent on churches should be making short form videos on Instagram Reels and TikToks because the amount of organic reach they can get by posting this content compared to, if they're going to go post a graphic on their Facebook page, the organic reach on a Facebook business page, this is probably around 6% on average.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, if you're lucky. We're not getting 6%, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so that being said, you go out and put an Instagram Reel, and I'm not going to say it's easy to have it pop off and go viral, but you're going to get a lot more organic views than what you would if you're just posting organic to Facebook and things like that. So that being said, like, we all know there's been tons of changes to Instagram within the past 6 months, them pushing Reels and all of this. What do you see as the future with church social media?
The future for church social media overall. Disclaimer, I generally am not a huge fan of, like, predicting what's to come on social because it's such a new industry. Mm-hmm. There's so much opportunity that exists right now. And I think if you are, trading stocks or in real estate, understanding, like, where the next big thing is going to come from, like, it's an important probably part of your job. I'm guessing. I'm not involved in either industry. But, like, the social media world, like, let's say BeReal becomes the next big thing. And I don't feel like it has the same potential that TikTok did. I remember when TikTok came out and I'm, like, sounding the alarm bells in, like, 2018. They're like, churches, get on TikTok. This is going to change how social media works. So that one was right. I don't feel that same way about BeReal. BeReal feels like a product that someone is going to, like, copycat and bring into their own ecosystem. Now, it's not going to be perfect, and TikTok did announce that this week. TikTok now, instead of 2 minutes, you have 3 minutes to publish a photo. Yeah. What a world. So that's the disclaimer. As for how churches will begin to use it, I mean, there are 2 indisputable trends on social right now. And there's always a lot of moving pieces. But the 2 indisputable trends are 1, short form video that you already mentioned, and 2, discovery algorithms. And that plays, obviously, they are part and parcel together. But we're seeing Facebook right now in a little bit of a precarious situation. The Verge did a good write-up on them outlining how they've had their first drop in yearly revenue in I think their company's existence. They're one of the most profitable top 25 companies in the world, and they have had this unprecedented run of success of just indefinite up and to the right growth, and they have kind of been beaten for the time being by TikTok, and they're scrambling. And Zuckerberg told The Verge, hey, in the next year, the amount of content you see on Facebook and Instagram that comes from accounts you do not follow will double. Basically saying, we need to do what TikTok is doing. And they're investing billions in architecting an algorithm that can compete. I don't know if you were part of the experiment that Instagram did a couple of weeks ago, where they introduced a new timeline very similar to TikTok's. And it was a disaster. The feedback from users was abhorrent. And so bad that Instagram walked it back, and they issued a press release. Oh, we got to get back to the drawing board. Sorry, we didn't quite do it right. And the reason that went so poorly is because Facebook, and by extension, Instagram, they've succeeded on the back of what we call the social graph on social media. And the social graph is the connections you have to your friends and your family. And the reason Facebook has been so sloughed off every oncomer so far is because they have 10 years of you building your social graph, building memories on their platforms. And what that does is it gives them a tremendous advantage with time, and dovetailing off that, a tremendous advantage with profit. So a company comes out and they start challenging Facebook. Facebook writes a $1 billion check, and Instagram joins Meta. Snapchat comes along, they start threatening Facebook. They turn down the offer that Facebook makes for $3 billion. So what do? They say, fine, we'll just take your stories feature that you popularized. Appreciate you, by the way. It's ours now in Instagram. And they cut Snapchat's momentum off at the knees. So TikTok comes around, and unlike previous social platforms that say, we're going to do something new based on the social graph, a new feature, but it's still, you need your friends and family. They go, we don't care about friends. We don't care about family. You need one friend. And it's the algorithm. And this algorithm is going to know you better than you know yourself. And I can, just speaking personally, I have found being on TikTok the last 3 years to be tremendously enriching, because it has introduced me to things that I never would have discovered on my own. New music, new workout routines, new skincare ideas, new fashion advice, new spiritual, Christian creators. I just never would have found them. And my life has been enriched by finding them. And so that algorithm is basically I like it. It knows me and it helps me out and it does. But that algorithm is not easy to make. And so Facebook is basically trying to play catch up, and they have to build an algorithm that can contend with TikTok. In the process, though, they're turning their back on the thing that has made them so unassailable, the social graph. And they're trying to be like TikTok, which, some are predicting that that's going to be the beginning of their demise, or at least the beginning of them losing their grip and their, monopolistic status in the social media game, which in turn could liberate the social internet and allow platforms to just do their own thing. It's kind of sad to see TikTok already be uh-oh, BeReal, they're a threat to us. Let's bring BeReal's feature to ours. You should have seen the comments, Brady. Everyone on this release is we just want apps that do the thing they do. We do not need an app that does everything. We've seen apps that do everything. It's called Facebook, and it's hell to use. It is so difficult. Every time I go to my business account, it switches me to another app. It says that I'm logged out. I log in, it says error, doesn't work. I log in again, it works. It has happened 100 straight times. So whatever bug this is, they haven't fixed. Like, that's what happens when your platform becomes so bloated and so full of features that people are not even using because you're trying to be everything to all people. And there's a lesson there for a bunch of other things. But yeah, social. It's feeling it right now. But the future, discovery algorithms and short form video. I'll say one more thing about discovery algorithms. If you are getting started or still newer to trying to like establish your audience and your platform, the great thing is like there's still plenty of opportunity and plenty of room for you. The downside is if you are established, it's like, yeah, as soon as you feel like you're in a good rhythm, in a good groove, something is disrupted in the social landscape and you've got to learn everything all over again. Like, it's only been 10 years and we've gone from search engine optimization and blogging and email marketing to YouTube and video content. I remember when just video content as a whole was novel. It's like, oh, you do YouTube, you don't blog? Oh, that's not really professional, is it? And now, like, YouTube University is like the #1 place people learn, second biggest search engine in the world. And now we're pivoting to short form content, and it's vertical. And the way you do that, the tricks and trades are very different. The downside with discovery is it reminds me of Facebook ads back in the day, where you'd publish a Facebook ad and you'd be reaching a new audience. And so you'd be like, hey, here's how your church can build a Facebook page. And every comment is like, the church is a plague upon society. And you're like, oh, God, wow, I didn't expect that. The discovery algorithms, social's becoming a little bit more of a toxic place, less friendly by the day, with people being bombarded by the algorithm in ways that they maybe don't want to be.
Yes, man, I feel that 100%. Like, a couple of things you said there. One, I don't know what it is, but with the Meta Business Manager, I've been trying to create a new video views audience for like retargeting, and it just says error loading pages, please try again. I've tried again like 3 times a day for the past week, and it just isn't working. No one on our staff knows. It's just you can't do that right now, apparently. That being said, going back to what you talked about, the crazy comments on Facebook ads when you were first starting. So I've had a couple of TikToks that have really just latched on the algorithm and gotten like 50, 60, 70,000 views, talking about, hey, churches, here's how we used Facebook ads to get more people to our church. Here's how you can do it too. And bro, some of these comments of like, not even like atheists that are like, oh, the church is a plague. It's like people in ministry that are like, why would your church use Facebook ads? And I was like, I don't know. Why would your church have a sign outside the building? Like, what's the difference there? And so have you experienced, like, what type of hate comments have you experienced in making content for ministries? What kind of pushback have you gotten?
Oh, man. So just like 2 recent ones that now that you say that, I'm remembering them. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Because TikTok comments are very small. You only get like, it's just a small number of characters. So you can't really extrapolate too much, which means sometimes you don't feel like you can actually respond adequately. And we did one that was like, hey, here's how to name a church or a ministry. And people were like, why do we care about names? We don't need names. I was like, literally a name? You're mad at names? I was like, I thought this one was one you'd finally be not upset about. Like, I get it if I'm like, hey, here's the thing, using social. Like, no, we shouldn't use social. Harm can be done. It's like, okay, great. There's a nuanced conversation. Like, you need a name. Like, you can't exist as a legal entity without a name. So if you're gonna make one, either come up with 18 random digits, or we could just think about a good name. And they're like, people were mad at names. Again.
Yeah, how dare you, Brady? Naming a ministry?
You would think with short form video content, like people would get most of the context. We did one where we were talking about, managing generational gaps in churches and how, sometimes dealing with older people, like, getting them involved with tech can be challenging, but you also don't want to leave them behind, but you can't only facilitate a certain group. And it's just tough. So we talked about 2 things that you could do. It's like, hey, look, you got 2 options. You can go with option A or option B. And whatever option you go with, it's cool. And people were like, well, what about option A? And I was like, it was 8 seconds into the video. At what point were you commenting? In the comment, you would have had to hear me say it. You couldn't have made this comment. It happens on YouTube sometimes. People make a comment and then I'm like, oh yeah, they did. I talk about that at minute 8 in the video. They
just reply with a timestamp there.
Yeah. But I'm like, it would have been impossible for you to make that content without hearing me at the 8-second mark address what you just said in the comments. So that's what I mean by like toxic and just like nonsensical. Not disagreements, not theological differences, not even like political differences. Just, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to say. So easy, just let it go.
Yeah. Man, I get that 100%. One, I saw recently you're kind of getting, I don't even want to call it beef, a little tiff with some other people in this industry whenever it comes to online giving and kind of what these other platforms do. Go ahead and explain, walk me through that, because I was trying to keep up, and like I wish, one thing I do like about Facebook is you can comment GIFs, and I know I still use GIFs. I guess I'm showing my age. And if there's like an argument, like people will post the GIFs of the guy eating popcorn. Like that was me under your post going back when you guys were going back at it. So explain that situation for the listeners.
Okay, so if you Google Ultimate Guide to Church Giving, you should find my video on this and my blog post. The blog post is thousands of words. The video is 33 minutes. And I made those two resources as like the definitive guide and explanation on this. Yeah. Because it is extremely challenging to succinctly recap because it involves a lot of math. And when math is involved, it's one, not especially interesting to a lot of people, but it also can be like difficult to grasp.
Gotcha.
But I will try to summarize here.
Yeah, give us a recap, TLDRs.
For sure. So anytime a financial transaction occurs digitally, whether it's online, you're buying something on Amazon, or you're swiping your credit card at a restaurant, there is an intermediary between your bank and the person that you're giving money to that basically exists to make sure that that transaction is secure and everything is goes where it's supposed to be. They manage disputes. They make sure that refunds happen. They make sure everyone's like not getting their credit cards ripped off. Okay. And because that's such a huge job, they will take usually 1% to 2% of that transaction. And this is why, like when you go to a convenience store, sometimes they'll be like, if you're not spending like $5, you can't use your credit card, or we'll charge you to use it. Because a convenience store, maybe their margins are already so slim. You pay $4 for gummy candies, they lose 25 cents plus 3% to fees, and suddenly it's like our margins that were so slim already, they're non-existent. Now, in a for-profit business, you can consider those margins and build them into your costs. So at Nucleus, we know every single person that pays us uses a credit card or a digital card of some kind, and so we're going to lose 3% for every single dollar that we earn. And we know that, and it's on our expenses list. If you are a church, not-for-profit, you can't raise prices. Yeah. And so these fees become a really big issue, especially when a global pandemic pushes online giving to heights that it had never before reached. But here's where things get really insidious. So this intermediary that manages the financial transactions, they are companies that you have probably never heard of. They are these giant, huge financial companies that manage all of these terminals, and they work with all the credit card companies, but they're mostly like nameless. What a church giving company will do, like mine, Nucleus Giving, like Tithely, like Subsplash, like PushPay, like any of these, is that they will partner with one of these financial giants and then build the online giving app in conjunction with them. So our online giving platform, it'll help you manage recurring giving, and you can create giving funds, and it's this nice giving form to give to your churches, and you can run reports and manage admins and issue giving receipts. But we're not the ones in charge of making sure that the transactions are secure and like encrypting through all that. Like we basically, once that happens, we pass it over to these processing giants, and they do their thing. Yeah. When you partner, and this is the big thing, when you partner with one of these processing companies, they will say, okay, we are going to charge 2%. So every time someone gives to a church, we're going to take 2%. How much do you want to take? And these giving companies will say, oh, we get to take a percentage? What? We were just going to charge like, $30 a month or whatever. Like, you pay your website provider $30 a month, or you pay ProPresenter like $300 a year. I don't know. Like, we can charge a percentage? Sure. We'll say it's a blended cost. It costs 3% to process gifts. You'll get 1, and we'll take 2. And it sounds inconsequential, And it's the reason why giving companies are often able to say, our giving platform is free. $0 per month. Except, the kicker is, we will take 1%, at least, often 1.5%, of every single gift your church receives in perpetuity with no cap. And what this results in, and we have these numbers from publicly traded giving companies in the church world that have tens of thousands of churches using them, is you might pay $29 a month for your website provider, and you pay on average thousands, 4 figures a month, to accept online giving. And that's just the 1% that these online giving platforms are taking. Not the 3%. There's still 2% going to the actual processor that actually has to handle all the secure stuff. And there are a ton of different fallouts from this. One is that when these giving companies are swimming in cash, they just start buying up other companies. So CCB gets acquired by PushPay, and Elvanto gets acquired by Tithely, and Ministry Brands is a conglomerate of 13, 15, 25 different brands. And they get venture capital from outside the church space because they're like, wait a minute, you found users that will pay you for a platform you never cancel, because who cancels their giving provider?
Yeah.
And they need to use you. They have to use you because they have to accept online gifts.
A lifetime.
And most most donations in America that are charitable go to churches, and you get them to give you 1% of every gift. It is like an unheard of tech software money pit. And so you have outside capital that's give these giving companies millions and millions and millions, so that they can one day sell for billions, all on the back of church donations. And it's a tricky thing to talk about, Brady, because on the one hand, once I found out this was happening, because I regrettably did not know for a while, we were like, okay, well, let's build a giving solution because we have the resources to do so, where we will just never take rev share. And that's the word that this is called. It's called rev share.
Yeah.
We're just never going to take it, ever. And when you do that and talk about this, it comes off as self-serving. Well, Brady, you're talking about this because you want people to use your giving platform. But if you talk about it and you don't have a solution, people will say, well, why don't you actually do something about it? Instead of just saying they're actually they're serving churches. Why don't you actually do something about it? So I recognize the awkwardness or just the stickiness of talking about it. But the math is the math, and we just want churches to know what's happening, be aware of it, and then they can make an informed decision.
No, I get it. And hey, next month we're going to DC and we're going to march for church giving providers and to stop.
Forget DC. We got to go to Silicon Valley and march. We'll go Palo Alto.
There we go. There we go. Man, yeah, that's so interesting. I wouldn't have even thought that this is a thing that's happening, and I love that you guys serve churches in a way that is very transparent, because that's one of the things. Because I've watched a lot of your stuff about this, and it's one of the things. It's not as bad that it's happening as much as it is that they're trying to hide the fact that it is, and they're just not being transparent about it as far as what that rev share looks like. And I love that you guys have so much transparency in what it is you do whenever it comes to church giving.
And to that end, and probably where you saw these things, was CEOs of other giving companies have not always been pleased with how I have talked about this. Where it's mostly just math and spreadsheets. I try not to be too colorful on the commentary because, again, that can sound more self-serving. It's hey, here's the math. And they'll say, well, that's not really what the math is. And I'm like, well, you won't tell us the math. And they're like, why don't we just talk about this once and for all on a podcast? I'm like, great. You tell me how much your company charges, because I put it on our pricing page, and we can talk about it. And then we can talk about our 2 different profit models, because we're just 2 different ways of charging. I charge a flat fee per month. You charge a percentage model. What is the percentage? Just tell us. And they have never been willing to come on my show or to invite me on their show and actually talk about that. They're always quick to invite, hey, let's talk about it, let's hash it out. But they won't actually say how they charge. And they won't even tell their salespeople. I have friends now that have worked at the company, or maybe not friends, maybe online acquaintances. And they'll say, hey, Braid, that's not really, can you not talk about our company this way? We're trying to help churches. I'm like, cool, man. When a church asks you, how much do you keep of my online gift? What do you tell them? He's like, well, they won't tell us that number. I'm like, okay, so if they're not telling you that number, do you think maybe there's something there? Yeah, because again, I'm mostly just trying to lay out the math. I I think, now to be fair, I do think that hiding your pricing model and claiming that you charge churches $0 per month when in fact you're keeping thousands of dollars. Like the average price, if I remember, because there's only one publicly traded company that reveals these numbers in full, and that's PushPay, and they have more than 10,000 churches. But the percentages are basically all the same across the board with these companies. They all charge about 3%, and part of that they keep for themselves, part is the processing company. And the more churches you have on your platform, the better rate you can negotiate. And hundreds of millions of dollars are being processed. But on PushPay, it was, I believe, and you can find this in the article, the exact number, it was $1,200 or $1,400 per month average per church. And they have 10,000 churches. So even if you account for like, let's say 50 mega churches use them, that's still 9,950 non-mega churches. So even if you had like churches that had massive amounts of online giving, there just aren't that many mega churches that would be able to skew the numbers that much. Like 90% of churches are 300 or fewer in America, much less globally where, I'm in Canada, we're even smaller here. So that means like the average church losing more than $10,000 a year needlessly for no other reason than a company that was like, yeah, we give you a giving form and that should earn us $10,000 a year. Imagine if ProPresenter was like, hey, you want to use ProPresenter? Just give us 1% of all your tithes and offerings. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely not. Man, it's crazy to hear kind of the behind the scenes and your perspective on this after just kind of seeing from the outside. So that being said, man, what's next for Nucleus? What's next for Pro Church Tools?
So yeah, we've been building software, like I said, 5 years. Software is a beast. I feel like we got like another 5-10 years in us just like building what we want to build. Nucleus is profitable. It's growing. It has been since day one. And we've taken no investor capital. In the software world, we would call it a bootstrapped company, which basically means that like we own the company 100%. And that means that we get to make decisions and build features and truthfully only answer to the churches that use the platform, not a board of executives. It's like, hey, we gave you $25 million and we're expecting you to sell for $250 or $2.5 billion in like 10 years. So you need to build like X feature. I'm like, well, that doesn't really align with our vision and our values. Like, well, it doesn't really matter. You owe us this. And, companies will say that that's not how it works, but like, the biblical principle is even clear. Like, the borrower is slave to the lender. Like, it's how it works. Once that money is involved, there is a tension and the relationship changes and it hamstrings your ability to build in a certain way. It doesn't mean you go like awful, but I don't know if you've ever used non-church software that got acquired. I have used many. They never get better. It's like they always get worse. And that's not to say that every acquisition is bad, but generally things go downhill because suddenly the financial equation changes. And so there's no rush for us to do something different. Because we have this audience, Brady, we do always feel like we have the optionality to pivot and do something different. But we are very committed to Nucleus, and I see nothing on the immediate forecast that would have us doing anything different. And we might have some side projects, but we launched 5 new Nucleus products this year, and we're just going to keep building, keep expanding, keep improving, and by extension, keep serving.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So for you guys, you've got the software side, you've got the SaaS, which has super high retention, like you said. I mean, I'm the kind of person, and I think most business people are, and I feel like most churches are. Once you find a software, you like it. If it's something that's going to serve your organization, you're going to keep it forever, right? And so for you guys, I know we kind of talked about at the beginning, you had the done for you announcement videos. You had the stock footage where you would go and like go in a helicopter and get footage of this national park and do all of these things. Are you still doing those other services that you first built Pro Church Tools on, or is it all just everything is in Nucleus right now?
Yeah, so the stock footage is in Nucleus. It's part of Nucleus Media. So we launched that under the brand name StoryTape, and after we basically launched like 3 different companies 3 years in a row. It was like Nucleus, StoryTape, and Rebel Give, which was the giving platform's first name. And then we were like, oh, you know what? It's probably more potent if we have them all under one name, and basically then brought them all under the same umbrella. You can still buy them all individually, but you can also bundle them, and then you just have like one dashboard to work with, and everything's accessible like one place. So it just seemed neater that way. The client side, the video announcement side, we still do that for a very small select number of churches, and the plan is to sunset that product sooner rather than later. If we're not going to keep doing it, we might pass it off to somebody else to keep serving those churches. But that has been winding down for a while, and we've been kind of waiting for it to like resolve itself of its own volition. Basically, every year it requires less work for us. So that's kind of how that's been working.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't even realize you were still doing that for churches. So, man, that's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to hop on here with us today. Any last thoughts, any final words, any big takeaways that you could give to these churches listening?
Oh, I mean, just take care of yourself, like one of the things my mom always said to me, which was when I was starting the company in my early 20s, she said, you won't always have like the same level of ambition, the same level of like vigor to work as hard as you are. And I don't know if that was just for me. But like I'm 31 now, doing the company for 10 years. And like the last couple of years, I have had a much more balanced work, life, recreation. And that's been really good. And that's been a luxury that I've been able to find because of the hard work that I put in first. And so I guess my word of advice would be like, understanding the season that you're in. Like maybe you're in that like grind season where you're just like, I'm just putting in that work. Maybe you're in like the more relaxing season. Seasons are meant to change though. And it might take years. But if you have been like, just grinding forever and like you've never taken like that bit of a rest, I don't know. There's only so much that you can neglect your personal, spiritual, social, familial health for the sake of like building legacy through your professional life or like succeeding in your professional life. And I don't know, just being careful with that trade-off. That's my sage advice now as an old 31-year-old. So.
I love it, man. I love it. Where can people find you?
Yeah, just my name, @Brady Shearer, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. And we have our own podcast, The Pro Church Tools Show, every Wednesday. We've been doing that for 10 years, 600 plus episodes. So if you are the type of person that likes podcasts, you can search my name on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them.
Awesome. Sweet. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Wow, what an incredible discussion with the second best Brady whenever it comes to church social media. I'm kidding. Brady Shearer, you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time again to be on the Church Candy podcast. If you have not already, guys, go ahead and get your free copy of my book, Plan Your Visit Playbook, that you can get below in the description. I'll put it in the show notes, or you can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com. The book is free. All you have to do is pay the $8.50 for shipping, and we'll get that right to you. Also, shout out to Soulbox, who did the intro music and outro music to this podcast. Guys, we'll see you in the next episode.